All right. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Matias Madou. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Secure Code Warrior. Brief about myself. I started my career at Ghent University in Belgium, where I pursued a Ph.D. in application security, working with static analysis solutions. So way back in the day, I did some programming, working with static analysis solutions. And 20 years ago, there was only one company that was trying to make a dent with static analysis, and that company was called Fortify. Yep. And 20 years ago, I actually knocked on their door almost literally because I went to San Francisco presenting my PhD work, like, hey, this is what I'm trying to do with static analysis. They had an interest and I joined them. And I've spent 7 years over there at Fortify trying to find problems in code. So if you're still running Fortify and you see false positives, well, maybe I have something to do with that. After 7 years, I actually thought like, hey, it's too easy to find problems in code and then throwing it over the wall to developers and running away as fast as you can. So I thought like, hey, is there not a better way to do so? Is there not a smarter way to essentially help the developers? Can we essentially help the developers in writing secure code? Can we tell the developers what they need to do? And that's how Secure Code Warrior is born. 10 years ago, we started out as a pure play training company. And I think a lot of you are familiar with Secure Code Warrior as a training company. That was 10 years ago, where gamification was a big topic and all that sort of things. But let's say the world has changed, right? AI came around the block. Today, we call ourselves developer risk management. We want to make sure that you can essentially assess the risk in your organization that is going into your code. And of course, we're doing a lot with AI as well, but I'm not here to pitch Secure Code Warrior. What I would like to talk about today is a little bit about AI, what the current landscape is, the benefits of AI, also a little bit the challenges of AI and where we are today in that journey. So, brief, in 2021, ChatGPT came out, and us as developers and as security people, we messed around with ChatGPT, right? A little bit of QA, a little bit of messing around, quite interesting, but you know, it was interesting. It was not really for work, you know, it was to mess around. But then things like Copilot came out and you're like, ooh, pair programming, that's pretty interesting, right? You could ask a question, you get some interesting code back. But today it's very different, right? Today, if you look at IDEs like Cursor or Windsurf, it's very, very different. You give it a description and almost like that, it's actually building an application. I truly feel that since January 1st, 2025, the world has drastically changed. You know, something has really moved in our world. And to visualize that a little bit, and this is super small, fantastic. You cannot read this, but I'll explain to you what it is. So the black dots that you see over here is essentially the percentage of US workers. For example, at the top, you see office and administration support. The black dot over here is 12.2%, meaning 1 in 10 people in the US, their profession is in office and administration. However, if you look at the red dot, if you look at, this is from Claude, the conversations that Claude is recording, of all the conversations, 7.9% is about office and administration support. Interesting. Well, something sticks out like a sore thumb, right? Something sticks out like a sore thumb, which is computer and mathematics. Only 3.4% of the people in the US, that's roughly 1 in 33 people in the US, is in computer and mathematics. Okay? The number of conversations that Claude has around computer and mathematics is a whopping 37%. 1 in 3 questions is about computer science or mathematics. Let's dig a little bit deeper. Are these mathematicians asking questions? No, it's all the computer science people that are asking questions. Because of the 37%, 6.1% is computer programmers asking questions. 5.3% is software developers and system software, and 3.4%, so no mathematicians. It's all about the software. What are they asking? Well, very specifically about, hey, how do I develop and maintain software? How can we build applications? How can you help us build applications faster? All right, that's a big shift. So what are we really asking? AI solutions? The top answer is, of course, writing code. Can you write me some code? The question is it useful? Is AI helpful in writing code? Well, AI is good at certain things and not good at other things. And it's really, I think that's really important because we're often misusing AI. We're using AI for everything. So what is it good at? So AI is actually good at code explanation. Maybe you've used that already. Somebody has written a piece of code, you have no clue what it does, and you ask AI, hey, can you explain me that piece of code? Quite useful. Boilerplates pieces of software. Of course, if you start from scratch, AI is very, very helpful. If there's nothing, AI is very helpful for prototyping, for templating, all that type of stuff. You can get up and running and build a proof of concept in no time. So what is it not good at? Well, it's not good at, for example, spaghetti code. We've all tried that, right? We all made a mess and then we hope that AI will save the day. That's not really happening. That is not really happening. One thing that I would like to highlight here is more the abstraction stuff, the abstraction stuff. So it's not really good in abstraction. That was not really the one that I wanted to put out. I remember. Niche and poorly documented topics. What is that about? Well, remember, we need to train these models with a lot of data. If there's some stuff on planet Earth that is very poorly documented, there's not a lot of information, well, then of course, it's really hard to have a model that is performing very well. So some good stuff, some bad stuff. But what does that mean? What are we really doing with AI and what is, for example, Stack Overflow saying? And I thought this was pretty interesting. AI tools in software development. So ultimately, what the thing is saying is that 84% of the respondents say, yes, we're using AI in software development. My question is always, who's benefiting from that? Is it the senior developer or is it the junior developer? Can you show me hands like who thinks AI the benefit is really for the senior developer? Who thinks a junior developer? I do not know either, to be honest. I can give you two reasonings, and I've seen both, by the way. The first one is junior developer versus senior developer. A senior developer knows how to ask questions to the AI solution. They know, like, hey, this is what I need to get out of the AI solution, so I know how to ask my question, and I also can vet the answer. So a senior developer goes faster. That is one type of reasoning, and I've seen that. There's another type of reasoning where actually the juniors have the benefit. Quite often, you seniors are very stubborn. You're like, hey, well, I do not want to use that AI solution. I'm not going to embrace that AI solution. Well, let me break some reality. The world has changed. The world has moved on. And it's like the best analogy that I can use is we all know a marathon, it's running, right? Well, the rules of the game have changed. Today, you can use a bike to do a marathon. And if you're a senior and if you're a good runner, you're going to say, I refuse to use a bike because a marathon is running. And you can fight it all you want. But if from today on you can use a bike, well, guess what? You're going to lose that marathon. And that's what we see happening with seniors as well. They are fighting it. They refuse to use it. They are against it. And guess what? The juniors embrace it and they go faster. They learn, they understand how to use it, and they go faster. So you're all right and you all deserve a beer. How about that? So second thing, AI tool frustration. I've actually seen that myself. So I used to be a software developer, and with AI, I'm still playing around with those tools. And I see AI tool frustration as well. You know why? Because suddenly I'm starting to debug someone else's code. So I ask AI a question, it gives me an answer. It's not exactly what I want. I need to understand that piece of code. Oh, there's a mistake in there. And then suddenly I lost 2 hours debugging someone else's code. And I'm like, oh my God, why did I not write this thing myself? So tool frustration, that's definitely an issue. Vibe coding. Vibe coding is, hey, we're not touching the code, we're just asking questions. What I find interesting about this one is I'm quite often asked the question, will there be more developers or less developers because of AI? Who thinks there are going to be more developers because of AI? Who thinks there are going to be less developers because of AI? I'm more the more developers, and you can fight me. If the no sayers can you can definitely fight me, yes. Here's my reasoning. So first of all, what I see happening is that we're finally producing enough code. Meaning, back in the day, there was always a shortage of software developers. They couldn't keep up. Because of AI, I feel that we're finally able to keep up with the feature requests because we are a little bit more efficient, we're a little bit more productive. But here comes the kicker. So essentially what I'm saying is if you're 100 developers, you keep it at 100 developers, you're just going to ask them to do more and to create more features. That's what I'm saying. But the second thing that I'm seeing is suddenly our finance people start to learn Python and do stuff with data. I'm like, oh my God, they become developers as well. So that's why I think there's going to be more developers, because suddenly everybody becomes a developer, which is crazy. Last but not least, what does the Stack Overflow survey say? Challenges with AI agents. I'm going to read this one out. Is it a learning curve, or is the tech not there yet? 87% of all respondents agree they are concerned about the accuracy. I know you developers, yes, I can see why that is a problem. 87% is concerned about the accuracy of the code. However, 81% of developers, just saying, I know there's a lot of AppSec people here that think that that developers are not concerned about security, but 81% agree they have concerns about the security and privacy of the data. Oh my God, isn't that fantastic? Our software developers care about security. This is proof. All right, what percentage of your code is AI generated? Any takers in your organization? How much of your code is AI generated?
20%?
20%.
30?
30?
1.
1. I guess they get 0. Normally they say 0 because it's not allowed, but 1? 10. Well, I think it's interesting because nobody knows. That's the first thing. Like, nobody knows. Like, that's, we all make wild guesses. There's some research that said right now around 40% is AI generated. I feel that's a whole lot. But my point over here is it feels to me that nobody knows. Nobody seems to know. And isn't that crazy? We're all using AI in our organizations, and we're pushing people to use AI, but nobody knows what percentage is AI generated. And are we at the end of this whole AI movement, or are we at the beginning of this AI movement? And again, there are two movements here. There's people that say, in this particular graph, for example, we're just at the beginning, where GPT-2 was roughly the same as a preschooler, GPT-3 was an elementary schooler, GPT-4 is a smart high schooler. You can already debate this. I think we can already debate this. But they're saying, hey, the research is just going up, and this is going to be phenomenal. Interesting thing over here, and you can already debate this, by the way. Is GPT-4 or GPT-5 better than an earlier version? The honest truth is, it's trained on more data. Isn't that interesting? It's trained on more data, okay? Where does the data come from? Well, just from the internet. We're just going to include more repositories, more things that we find. Is that good code or is that bad code?
Bad code. That's my personal opinion.
So that's crazy, right? So yes, they are more powerful. Don't get me wrong. Those higher models are more powerful. Are they better? I don't know. So there's definitely a school of thought over here. Gartner, for example, that says, hey, we're at the peak right now. Generative AI, this is how good as it will ever get. And then, you're going to go into the trough of dissolution. Interesting to note over here, one thing that I've seen, I'm not sure if a lot of people know, but this whole AI movement is heavily funded. Okay, what we're using today and what we're paying for AI today is not the real cost. Okay, if you're, for example, a Cursor user and you pay whatever, $50, well, Cursor is heavily funded. Cursor uses a model which is heavily funded. The model is using electricity, which is even funded these days because they all want to have market share and they all want to benefit AI. They are using chips, which are funded. So essentially, your $50 that you're spending today on AI, the real cost, some people claim it's around $5,000. Okay, so I would say make good use of it today. It's never going to be that cheap. So there are two things that can happen. One is, well, we all going to massively use more of AI and it's going to drive the cost down. So ultimately, you're going to pay $50, which is likely, I don't know, maybe, but I don't, if it's 100-fold, I don't know, like if that's even possible. Or they need to jack up the prices. And that's going to be problematic. Will your company pay $5,000 for your Cursor? Probably not.
Doubt that.
Yeah, doubt that. So then the question is going to be, well, can you use a lighter model, a model that is not that powerful, that is using less electricity, and so on and so forth. So moving forward, there's going to be a trade-off in the usage of AI. So AI encoding. Let's come down to the security of the whole thing. I really think there's a fork in the road right now with AI, and the question mark will become, will we keep on doing what we're doing? So essentially the question is, will you be an average developer or will you have average developers? The problem over there is people are just copy-pasting stuff from AI. You're just copy-pasting stuff from AI. And if these models are fantastic, and I'm going to go into that discussion in a second, if these models are fantastic, that's great. That's, they're going to go 10 times faster. But if these models are not that good, they're going to introduce 10 times more risk. All right? So they're going to go 10 times faster. They're going to crank out 10 times more code and going to introduce 10 times more risk. Over here, I'm still convinced that senior security skilled people that embrace this whole thing, they are going to go 10 times faster. They're going to be 10 times more productive without introducing that additional risk. They are not going to introduce 10 times more risk. However, we need to be careful. We need to look at the data. We need to look at the data. There's something called Bachbench. Maybe you're familiar with Bachbench. Bachbench is an evaluation benchmark. And it's actually specifically designed to assess the capabilities of large language models in generating correct and secure backend applications. It gives you a flavor of what they're capable of because there's numbers here. GPT-5, correct and secure, roughly 50% of the code that GPT-5 is giving back is correct and secure. That's interesting. It's interesting to me because Bachbench, why I say it's giving you a flavor? This is just giving you a flavor because it's not all languages on planet Earth. It's just the 14 popular backends and I think 6 programming languages. So, it should already be good. It's already taking the stuff that is well known, where there's a lot of data from, where we know the security. And still, as you can see, it's not quite there yet. So one of the key takeaways, I've just taken one of their website, is 62% of the solutions generated even by the best models are either incorrect or contain a security vulnerability, highlighting that LLMs cannot yet generate deployment-ready code. Again, use them wisely. Use them wisely, know what you're doing. This is research that we've done ourselves, actually a while ago, I think 12 to 18 months ago, because you're going to see there's Claude 3.5, there's older models in there. And by the way, this should be actually a 3D, but the graphics didn't turn out well. Essentially, you see the LLM model being used, the vulnerabilities that we've worked on, and also the language framework. Essentially, the third dimension is language framework. So what did we do? We looked at all types of vulnerabilities in a lot of different LLMs, and we tried to get our head around, can a LLM identify and essentially fix a particular problem? Can it identify a SQL injection, and can it fix that particular problem? Okay, so one thing that we've seen in general, what you can see is that these models become better and better in security. So the more red, should have been the other way around, but anyway, the more red, the better. The more to the right-hand side, also the better. And one thing that we've noticed is injection, SQL injection, is all the way to the right. I think that is, to me, a major breakthrough, because that means that maybe we're going to get rid of new SQL injections, not all SQL injections, but maybe we're going to get rid of SQL injection. Maybe these LLMs are going to help our developers not introduce SQL injection. Oh my God. Why am I saying new? Well, there's still a ton of legacy code, right? And if it doesn't break and if it's working, do not touch it. That's in a lot of organizations what's happening. You know, they're like, oh, but it ran for the last 10 years. Please do not touch it. Anyway, that is one thing. So the research shows that we're on a good path for the vulnerabilities, for the bugs. The bug part, we see that a lot of these problems, but they may go away by usage of AI solutions. The flaws, the design problems, the architectural problems are not really. And last but not least, there's even a thing over here that is not shown. There are new problems that LLMs introduce that we didn't have to talk about 5 years ago. The most simplistic one is hallucinations. Nobody knew about hallucinations 5 years ago, and suddenly we need to tell people, well, there's a chance that this thing is saying things that do not exist. Oh, really? That's pretty interesting. So there are problems that LLM is, that new problems that arise.
Yes, can I just
yes. Am I doing something?
Can you mute yourself on Zoom because people are complaining about echo?
1 second. I thought I would.
You are muted.
I am muted.
Okay, fine. So something else. I might turn the microphone then. Can I just swap your microphone?
Oh, 1 second. What did I do? Are we back? Can you hear me online? Can you hear me online? Can you hear me online? No. Should be good? All right. Where was I? Okay, so we've done our own research. No? You good? Okay. We've done our own research. Veracode. Yes, this is research from Veracode. Chris Wysopal presented this a couple of months ago, where they see something similar of the two things that I've just presented. Over there, what they've done is like, hey, if an AI solution is giving code back, is it syntactically correct, or is it security correct? And what they see is, from a syntax perspective, the most simplistic way is, does it compile? Well, 90% or almost 100% of the code seems to compile. If you ask AI a question, it's giving you code that actually compiles. It's improving, goes up. From a security perspective, roughly the same, 50%. We're around 50%. All right, fantastic. I've told you how, what we're using. I've told you a lot of developers are using it. I tried to explain what the dangers are. Now the question is really, what do we know about our own code? All right, and that is pretty interesting to me. Are your developers using AI? Quite often the answer is yes. There's probably one over here that's going to say no because it's not allowed in my company, and it's quite often a big bank, maybe. Which models are they using? Which models are they using in your organization? Cursor? Claude? Is that because you know, or is that because of the policy? You know. All right. Would love to know how you... Oh, okay, for Cursor. Okay, because Cursor is rolled out. But other than that, quite often, it's the policy. What they're really using is not always known, right? In your organization, it can be known. When I ask these questions, quite often they fall back and they say, oh, the policy is they can use X, Y, Z. What they're using on a day-to-day basis is lesser known. And how much code is generated? That's very unknown. How secure is the, how secure is the code output from these tools? I've tried to go through that in the last couple slides. Roughly 50–60% is secure. So if you are security proficient, then yes, they can use these type of tools. My philosophy is I think we need to do better in that area. I think as an industry, we need to do better in that area. I think we need to collect more data to have some better insights, to essentially get some governance, and to make some smart decisions. Because I feel there is not a single, and again, you can find me and here during the break, so happy to find me. I don't think there's any enterprise-ready AI solution. They're all good, they're reasonable, but from a security perspective, I don't feel there's any enterprise-ready solution. At the same time, you see agentic AI, you see essentially code being created by these solutions almost it's automatically, but without a lot of oversight and people pushing it into their code base. So I'm a big advocate that we need to do better in that area. All right. Where else can you use AI in the SDLC? That's another piece of research that we've done, which I thought was interesting for this audience. One thing that we've seen is threat modeling. I asked, I can't remember which AI solution, I asked, paint me a developer that has problems with threat modeling or something along those lines. And that's the picture that came out. But quite often I feel that software developers are struggling with threat modeling, which is normal. I think which is totally normal. It's quite often an AppSec-led initiative where developers can take part in, but AppSec people lead it, developers are struggling with it. One thing that we've done internally, and that seems to work really, really well, is just use AI and use 7 simple steps to go through a particular scenario and let AI help us. And I'll tell you why it's very interesting. So first of all, the 7 steps, you gather the feature requirements. Don't do anything new. You have this. You have the user stories. You have the acceptance criteria. Don't ask the developer to draw anything new. Do not do that. You gather the system requirements. What are the existing security artifacts? What is the tech stack? What are the controls? And then you essentially in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more steps, you go to an AI solution and you essentially ask them questions and you get some meaningful feedback. Very simple steps. And if you use some templates, you can essentially get a long way in doing threat modeling with AI. I'm going to tell you why this is working, why we feel that this is working. And it's a very interesting point. So over here, what we're trying to do is we say, hey, you are a security expert collaborating with a developer. That's very important. Translate security concepts into development terminology and context, yada, yada. So this is the 7 steps from the previous one. This is working because of this first line over here. You are a security expert. Well, it's working because of way more, but it has a big influence. You are a security expert. I fought this all my life. Back in the day, they said, hey, if you want to do threat modeling, think like an attacker. Well, guess what? I cannot think like an attacker. And it's like suddenly like, oh yeah, no problem. I'm going to think like an attacker. It's like, hey, here are some ingredients. Make me a nice dish. Think about a professional chef. And suddenly you're a professional. That doesn't work, right? That does not work. That does not work.
So think like an attacker is also a myth. It doesn't exist. You cannot suddenly start thinking like an attacker. This does work with AI. Remember, AI is training a lot of data. AI has access to a lot of information. So if you get some really interesting quotes in there, like, hey, you are a security expert, well, guess what? It's going to go out and it's going to find that pieces of information that helps this thing to be a security expert. Okay? So this works better because it has enough context, it has enough data, it has enough information to essentially pretend to be this particular thing. So we feel that this is really resonating. If you use a couple of templates and we're looking to open source or templates and see how the market can use these templates. But this is like essentially very, very interesting. And I feel it's not rocket science, by the way. What we've done is definitely not rocket science. It's just out there. You can find these templates online. And this is my AI-generated thing. I said, hey, can you make me a slide with a developer that is happy because he's using AI? This is my code. Anyway, last portion. Still have 2 minutes. Critical thinking. Last but not least, what do I want to point out is it all starts with critical thinking. And it's something that we lack. It's not only about software development, it's in general. This is what I hope you know, how I can illustrate this. Go to ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT a question about a field that you master. Okay? So go to ChatGPT and ask a question. You're going to see the response and you're going to say, it's not entirely correct. Over here, this is missing, yada, yada, yada. Then go to ChatGPT and ask a question about something that you do not master, a field that you do not know about. And it's going to be very interesting because you're going to say, that's interesting, without any question. You're going to believe that thing. You're going to say, that's interesting, I did not know that. And you're not going to do any research, you're just going to believe that thing. You know what the kicker is? When do you go to ChatGPT? When you know your stuff, or when you do not know your stuff? And that's a problem. That's a big, big problem. Because if you're not doing critical thinking, it impacts your organization, but it even impacts AI again. Because guess what? We keep on training that thing. And the more lazy we become, the more problems we essentially make, the more mistakes we make, well, the more flawed our data source becomes, and the more flawed our AI solutions become. All right? So we need that critical thinking. Because it's also the fact that developers, if they lack that critical thinking, it has a huge impact on the speed of development in general. One piece of research, and I think I finished with that one. Yes. One piece of research that I found was done by this gentleman from Stanford. And he did an experiment with 2 groups of software developers. He said, hey, let's program something. Let's program something. And you group of developers, you can use an AI solution. And you group of developers, you cannot use an AI solution. And notably, it was not about the code. It was not about the functionality. Afterwards, he went to both groups of developers and he asked, do you think that your application was securely developed? Okay. The group of people that were not using an AI solution, they were like, maybe. We did not know. We did our best. We did the best to our capability, but we were not sure if it was securely developed. The group that was using an AI solution said yes. Yeah, it was securely developed. We did everything possible to securely develop that application. That's shocking, right? That's really shocking. Because even more shocking was the fact there was not a whole lot of difference between the 2 applications in terms of security. In fact, the group that was not using AI did actually marginally better than the group that was using an AI solution. They were just doubting their own skill set, capabilities to develop that application, where the other group was just trusting the machine. With that, I would like to leave you and wrap it up. So hopefully, I was able to give you some insight on developers, what their prime usage is of AI in software development. Hopefully, I was able to give you some insight on the secure code or the insecure code that comes out of AI solutions, how AI can be used throughout the SDLC. There are numerous examples how AI can be used throughout the SDLC. And last but not least, I all think we need to do a little bit more critical thinking when using AI, because we're unfortunately becoming lazy, and that's going to be a problem in the future. So the more critical thinking, the better. Thank you very much.